I would not be sitting here if I didn't believe that, truly. So I thank you for your comments.
I wanted to also thank you, Dr. Garcia, for having this forum and having all the people here, and Carla Sigmund, board member for IVC. But I'd like to also suggest that you reach out to the Spanish-speaking community and go out there, because a lot of them don't have transportation, they can't come to these forums, they really don't know what it's about. So the Spanish-speaking community, our Spanish speakers, our immigrant families, they really need to know what's going on, because they really need to know what the difference is between hemp and marijuana, because sometimes just the plant, the picture of the plant could be something negative for them, because they've been through a lot. So I'd like to ask you to take these forums out to the community and reach out to our people that will be working in these fields. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Alex. So I kind of this question is directed to your. So you mentioned that hemp will bring jobs or to our community. Do you guys have maybe like I know we're at an early stage, but maybe something long term where college students will kind of have an idea what jobs, if there's going to be other jobs besides harvesting the crop, and if like I know you guys said you want to keep the manufacturing or processing local, but I mean, is that like a guarantee, or I know we're early in the process, but I mean, is it in a long-term plan to try to build something out here for students in the ag programs?
Yes, 100%, and that's really why the basis of this engagement, if we do it, and we're starting on understanding the crop, the agronomic research that we're conducting, Primary is conducting, that IVC will support. It really helps understand, the production elements of it. How can this sustain? When does it need to grow and all that? We have to do that first before you can set foot and create a job. The other element that we're doing, that Primary is doing, that has not been discussed or presented officially to IVC is an economic impact study and economic research around it, which is four-part, last part being job creation, understanding what the jobs created are and what the needs of the industry are. And that's really what it comes down to. This industry is ramping up so rapidly that I see out in year one, year two, not having the personnel available to fill the needs of the industry. Everything ranging from in the farm to administration and technicians, in between quality control. There's a long list of those types of jobs that you mentioned that we know need to be filled, that we want to source locally. The goal on our end is to provide information on what jobs and what skills are necessary to support the industry, so that the IVC at their discretion can understand it and figure out how to support it if they can. Now that's not, I want to make clear, that's not the first step. The first step is to understand the crop and how it can be produced. And through that learning, through that engagement, through education to the community, to understand what the opportunities the businesses and industry can provide.
Son, and I can speak to that a little bit, but I've had discussions with people in the industry, just their engagement in other areas where they've been growing this, because I know Colorado, for example, has been growing it, for 4 years? Since the 2014, the Farm Bill officially allowed research in the crop, but California wasn't really on board with it. And part of that was a tug of war between the recreational medicinal marijuana industry and the hemp industry in California. So marijuana had a bigger pull at the Sacramento level, so it was harder for people to get research permits in the state of California. But Colorado, Kentucky, Oregon have been wide open. They've been growing it for 4 or 5 years. And those industries really sprouted up. So if you read the local papers, say Pueblo, Colorado, there's an old food plant that shut down. It's 145,000 square foot building's been sitting there. It just got purchased, and now it's turned into a lab. Essentially, they're taking in raw product, they're processing, There's distribution going in, there's inventory control, there's financial controls, there's everything. And they're estimating that is gonna employ about 250 people, just one processing facility. And they're only growing 5,000 acres collectively in that region, so it's not a big initial impact, but if you start stacking it one after the other, and what I would say is, if you go across the border to Arizona and you look at all the salad processing plants, those could have been here in Imperial Valley. There was a choice made back in the 70s and 80s. People were leaving California, and Arizona was a recipient of that, so it'd be really nice to get those plants to come back here, but I don't think it's gonna happen, just based on state minimum wage and other issues. I don't think they're gonna leave Arizona necessarily, but now they're starting to build salad plants in the Mexicali Valley as well, so there's 2 large salad plants that just got built down there. So you're seeing jobs moving away in those industries. And if we're looking long-term, cotton used to be the biggest crop in Imperial Valley back in the 70s. It's gone. We don't grow it. Now alfalfa is the largest crop. I'm not saying we're going to lose it because it's hard to grow, but it uses a lot of water. And there's 13 hay distribution facilities here in Imperial Valley. If you just look at the economics of agriculture and from the top down, you go from the largest crops. The largest crops don't make as much money as smaller crops, and really the produce makes a lot of money, and people spend a lot on fertilizer, they spend a lot on labor, they spend a lot on equipment, and really you have to, I think we should be targeting crops like hemp that have a high value added component that you can make into a lot of things. So I think it's important to look at that, and not to turn down other crops when they come in the door, and you know, we have to embrace the crops that are here. And if you look across the street, there's a huge leaf lettuce industry that we embrace because it doesn't, not that it doesn't use a lot of labor, but it can be mechanized pretty well on the harvesting side. And Imperial Valley does a really good job, and we have a lot of organic production of that. So I think that's something that if you're looking for other programs to feed also the hemp, you can open up your ag department and focus on food safety and that side of agriculture that's really more processed.
And I'd like to add too on the types of jobs we're talking about. I think that's a really good point. And you can go on YouTube and kind of look up, extraction facilities, cannabis extraction facilities, things like that. We're talking about, and on the CBD side, we're talking about, facilities, factories that are really highly technical, science-driven, that require everything from quality control to formulation and things like this. So we're not talking about packing sheds here. That will be a component of it when we fully integrated, but really it's high sophistication FDA approved facilities that you would expect to see in the pharmaceutical industry. So those are where a lot of the new opportunities are coming that are separate than other agricultural processes now. And again, Dr. Khan, you mentioned it with their lab and other research. I hope we can get to a point where we're talking about being able to train students and give them work experience on those higher level, higher skill set education-based, opportunities.
So I just like
Going
to
back to
add,
what you mentioned about, we lose opportunities to Arizona or Mexico. You don't think maybe the hemp will maybe look for opportunities somewhere else for those processing plants? I mean, that will bring, better jobs for students.
Yeah, no, you always have to look out that far and see whether the competitive advantages in the industry. I mentioned them in my slides briefly. I'm better speaking like this than I am in the presentation in notes, but we have significant competitive advantages, even being in California as we are. And some of that is proximity to the market. Some of it's our agricultural sophistication. So Steve mentioned where other states have gotten 4 years ahead of us in building some of the agronomic research and understanding of the crop. They're limited in how they can produce. They don't have controlled irrigation systems. They're dealt with a specific production window, whereas we have a much larger production window that we can amortize our infrastructure costs over longer periods of time. The as a community. So there's a lot of things that give us competitive advantages. And, you know, when you talk about the integrated model and the tail end of the supply chain here, we're talking about large companies that are involved in the offtake and the branding and all these other things of this product. So, you know, big companies don't just set up shop anywhere, you know, and they don't, when they do, they do it for the long term. Like you said, it's hard to, Arizona set up their big processing plant, so it's hard for them to move even if there's an opportunity that might be slightly better, you know, in the short term. They're looking long term here. So establishing a foothold does have a real value, I believe, in making sure it's sustainable in the future.
I'd just like to add too, you know, in regards to your comment about, you know, guarantees, of course, there's no guarantees on anything, but I do believe there is a technical need for processing facilities to be near the cultivation. I believe, Sutton, you may be able to elaborate on this, but I believe that the valuable products that come from this product degrade over time if transported. You also lose a lot of, especially in the isolates, you actually lose it if you mishandle the crop, if you transport the crop too far, so it's got to be handled very carefully. And as far as this crop potentially going to Mexico, I think it, you know, even though the crop is now part of the, is federally accepted, I think it will be a decade or two before you're actually able to cross it over an international border. So I'm not saying that'll never happen, but you know, we might have some time on our hands in our favor in that way. But you know, there's no guarantees. I mean, we grow the heck out of carrots in Imperial County. We don't process anything here. I mean, we wash and that's about all we do here in Imperial County. It all goes out up in the Bakersfield area, and that's a shame because it's creating jobs in another county. And our number one industry is creating jobs for somebody else. So that's where we're at a disadvantage, where this you know, creates a scenario where the processing and the cultivation need to be nearby.
I just